All right, everyone. Well, welcome. As you know, we have a guest speaker today, and our guest speaker is Steve Bram. Steve Bram is with George Smith Partners. Steve used to be a principal in the company. George Smith Partners is a large real estate investment banking firm based here in Los Angeles. I think 2 or 3 years ago, I think Steve may have sold the firm to what is it, Axios? I think it is, Steve. And
That's
you
right.
guys, you guys as well have an office in New York, so you're doing business on both coasts. Now, Steve has come into our class to talk to us today about the hotel and motel product type. Now, I've been teaching since I think, Steve, 2008, and you've been a guest speaker in I don't know how many of my classes over the years, both here at UCLA and when I was teaching at USC. So I'm very grateful for Steve to come in. He's a recognized expert in the hotel motel product type. Here, let me just briefly show you here. Hang on one sec, Steve. I'm going to give you your proper introduction. So
Oh, look
here's
at me. I look so young.
here is Steve, and he's got he's been in the business, what, 40 years or something like that, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in financing for a variety of product types, not just hotels and motels, although today we're going to focus on the hotel motel product type. So I will put this link to Steve's bio at Canvas so you guys can all see. And I'd like to kind of turn over the presentation to Steve. Now, what he's going to do is walk you through essentially the chapter in the Brett text on hotels and motels. He's got some notes to share with you, and I'll kind of riff along the way. So, Steve, we're very grateful for that you're here. Take it away.
Hi, class. And this is the first time that I have given a lecture on Zoom. So it's a little bit different for me. I can't see when somebody falls asleep and I ask you a question or somebody gets up and goes to the bathroom. So I will trust that we make this interesting enough that you stay in front of the screen for this. And I also often like to ask questions of the class as I go to keep everybody sharp, but I'm not able to do that here. So you're missing out on my Harvard teaching technique. So you're off easy today. Hello, everybody. And I think this class is being given tonight, right? Wednesday
Yeah,
night?
yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not able to join you guys in person because you're not going to meet in person. So I've got some notes about this class that I've given for multiple times to Mark, and I will share it with you. And first, I attended, besides Wharton Business School in finance, I attended Cornell Hotel School. Was lucky enough to graduate top of my class there, and we're going to talk about the hotel business, which I trained in, I worked in a bit, and we're going to just bring up some items in the hotel business that you may not have thought about. So as you analyze or try to increase your breadth of knowledge about real estate, you'll just have these concepts to keep in mind. One of the things I did also is I worked for HVS for a while, which is the largest hotel appraiser in the country, or at least they were at the time that I worked for them. And I helped them write a book on the valuation of hotels and restaurants. In the hotel business, I also worked at Hyatt Hotels and Sheraton Hotels and a ski resort along the way. And let me just share what I do now. What I do now is I am a financier for the last, 40 years at George Smith Partners. We are mortgage brokers, which means we arrange financing for sponsors who are going to build a project or need to refinance a project. And I'm the hotel expert at the firm, though we do all kinds of things.
I didn't know about the ski resort, Steve. That's kind of
Yeah,
interesting. I
yeah.
didn't know about
Park
that.
City, Utah,
Wonderful.
when I was 19 and I was going actually to Claremont Colleges my sophomore year, my freshman year, and I said, I want to go skiing and I want to take a year off and be a ski bum, but I don't want to do it after I graduate. So I took off between my freshman and sophomore year. My parents weren't happy about that. I moved to Park City, Utah, and I got a job at a hotel there.
How
And
cool.
skied on my days off, and I worked days and nights, was the assistant manager,
Wonderful. Wonderful.
100-room hotel there, lots of fun. So, so let's think about what a hotel is, because a hotel is a business. It's not real estate. And in fact, if you think about the income that you get, the income is coming from a business. It's not that somebody's got a lease If you're the owner of the dirt and the owner of the hotel, it's not like you lease the hotel to somebody and somebody gives you a rent check. You're actually operating the business, or you hire a management company to operate that business for you. And what is it that that business has to sell? Are you selling, beds? Well, I should say, are you selling like cars? And if you're selling cars, those cars, if you don't sell them today, they're still in the lot tomorrow, and you can sell them tomorrow and the next day and the next day. But in the hotel business, you sell rooms and you sell room nights. So if you don't sell a room night, which is one room for one night, if you don't sell a room night tonight, tomorrow night, that's gone, and you can never sell that room night again. Your inventory goes out the door every night. Makes the hotel business different from many other businesses, certainly different from retail sales businesses. And as well, if you think about the hotel business, value pricing for rooms is really important. In the old days, you had a fixed price that you sold a room for, and you sold it at $100 a night, no matter how much demand there was. When it was all gone, it was all gone. Today in the hotel business, there's value pricing. If there's a lot of demand, the price goes up. If there's no demand, the price goes down. If there's a conference and demand goes up, the conference rates are more. The disadvantage of the hotel business is there are no long-term leases in place, higher risk. The advantage of the hotel business is there's no long-term leases, the same thing. So your rents can change every day, and you can increase them when there's more demand. Management is key. And when you think about the hotel business, the customer doesn't often complain. They just don't come back. And that's a bad thing. The restaurant business, it's the same thing. So you've got to give them good service there. Let's talk about some terms in the hotel business. One term is room nights. So if you've got a 100-room hotel, you've got 100 room nights to sell tonight, and you've got 36,500 room nights a year to sell. That's a room night. Available room nights means the amount of room nights you've got available to sell, meaning if some rooms are not available, they're under construction or things like that. Then the available room nights might be different from the total room nights. The occupied room nights are, again, you've got room nights to sell. How many of them are occupied in any particular night? Mm-hmm. Your occupancy percentage is the percentage of rooms that were occupied compared to the available room nights you've got. So if you've got 100 rooms in your hotel, one of them is under construction, you've got 99 available room nights, and you've got 50 rooms sold tonight. You've got 49 point something percent occupancy that night. And and then the other term you use is your average daily rate.
The ADR.
ADR is what that's called, your average daily rate, and that's just dividing the occupied room nights by the amount of total income you got for those, and that's the average daily room rate, ADR, as Mark says. And then you've got something called a RevPAR. A RevPAR is the occupancy times the ADR. Let's just stop and think about that for a second. Why do we care about knowing what a RevPAR is? The reason we care is because, guess what? If you increase the ADR, the rate you charge, your occupancy would typically go down. And if you reduce your ADR, your occupancy would go up. So yes, you look at ADR, and yes, you look at occupancy, but you also look at what your RevPAR is, because otherwise, if you take ADR or occupancy by themselves, they will not reflect really what's happening in your hotel any particular night. So often you compare the RevPARs, and you might compare the RevPARs or the ADR and occupancy combined in any given time frame. It might be for a day, it might be for a week, it might be a month, it might be a year, it might be the trailing 12 months, it might be trailing 3 years. So there are any different sets of time frames that you look at there. All right. So let's go on here. Let's see, let's talk about doing a market study for a hotel. All right, so if you're trying to decide if you want to,
Steve, did you want to share any document that you have there or on
no,
screen or?
no, I don't have much here. I've got some notes that I'm going from.
Okay.
I'm happy to share those. And I guess if people don't want to look at my face,
Or
uh,
mine, or mine.
we could do that. But at this point, I'm just going to talk and let people take notes if they'd like to.
Okay.
So a market study, what might a market study include? You know what, maybe I will put the notes in here. So let me do that. It doesn't take long. Where's the share button? Okay, is that on?
Yeah,
Now, okay. So these are the notes, and I'm happy to share these notes. These are just kind of an outline of things that I'm going to talk about here.
sure.
So steps in preparation of a hotel market study. So you visit the site, you analyze the economic and demographic trends in the area. Obviously, that means if you're building a hotel in a depressed area with low income, it's not going to do as well as in a nicer area. So you need to understand that and the trends. Are they improving or are they getting worse? You research the competition of your hotel. What hotels are you going to compete with? What hotels are there now? And you look at the estimated growth and the history of the competition. Is the competition done well in the past? And then you look at the estimated growth of the supply and demand. What's the future lodging demand of the site? And let me just stop right there and let's talk about that for a quick second. If you're in a town that sits all by itself and it's got 4 hotels, and those 4 hotels each have 100 rooms, and those hotels are running 75% occupied for the last year. And now you're going to build one more 100-room hotel there. So now there are going to be 500 rooms, not 400 rooms available in that small town. What's going to happen to the demand for those hotels and the demand for your hotel? You would think that the demand is going to stay the same, which means if they had 400 rooms before and they were 75% occupied, the demand was for 300 room nights per night. Now, if you're going to have 500 rooms instead of 400 rooms, now you've got 300 room nights of demand available being spread amongst 500 rooms, not 400 rooms. Therefore, what's the occupancy expected to be for those new 500 room hotel, 500 rooms? And you might say, well, it's going to go down to 60% now, which is 300 divided by 500, 300 room nights demand divided by 500 room nights. You've now got demand for 660% occupancy because it takes away the demand for the other 4 hotels.
And in retail, that's called cannibalizing the store, but it's kind of very similar to hotel motel.
Right. And then I see here in my notes, forecast subjects penetration in the hotel marketplace. So that's an easy concept. I just want to explain that term. You assume that every of one of those 5 hotels is going to have the same penetration, which means they will have an equal percentage of the pool. So here we're saying that all 5 of these new hotels are going to run 60%. However, that may actually not be the case. Why? Because our new 100-room hotel is nicer, newer, more comfortable beds, maybe a nicer flag, but let's just say it's new and the others are not new. So our penetration might be more than what our fair penetration would be. So if before we said all 5 hotels are going to get 60%, actually The other hotels may get 55% and we may get, 70%, 75%. So that means that our penetration will be more than 100.
Yeah.
Our penetration might be 115 or 120% of the pot. And the other four hotels might have a penetration of less than 100. Is there a term for that in retail, Mark?
No, it's just you're penetrating the market a little bit more effectively in a particular trade area. And one of the terms that I wanted to just kind of clarify, Steve mentioned it just a couple minutes ago, this term called the flag. Well, the flag is the brand, like Hyatt or Hilton or Motel 6. That's the brand of the hotel. That's called the flag.
Yeah, thank you. So when we're looking at the different indicators we look at, let's just go through the rest of these notes here. You review the project description, so see how it's going to compare to the other hotels that are there. You look at the area, the demand generators, where do they come from? How are they going to change? The competitive lodging market, we talked about that. Is anything else going to get built there? What's the historic performance of the competition, and what's the projected performance of them, and what's the
Yeah.
projected performance of our hotel?
Steve, would you say that, or let me ask it this way, what would you say are the primary drivers of demand for hotel and motel product?
Well, it completely depends on what kind of hotel you've got. So let's talk about that. And in fact, let's go to right here.
It could be travel, it could be leisure, it could be
Yep.
corporate, right?
So look right here on the screen, and let me, I'm just going to increase my screen size a little bit. 1 second. Okay, there we go. Okay. So hotel demand segments. So you see here, leisure, business group, contract, government.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that for a second. So leisure is the transient guest. That means the guest that just comes to stay overnight. He might be driving down the road, a tourist, transient, or it might be destination, where they say they like your hotel because it's near a amusement park or near a downtown that they want to go to, or near some sightseeing. So they're going to a certain place and they want to stay at your hotel because it's near that destination. The transient means they're coming, but they're only going to stay for a night or two and they need a place to stay. Then you've got the business traveler. The business traveler, again, might be transient, just coming for a night or two for business, or he might be somebody that comes to this location on a regular basis because there's a business that he's conducting there. And I'm going to come back and talk about these again in a second. Then you've got group, business, conventions, corporate meetings, training, incentive group. Certainly group business has been impacted by COVID, number one, in a big way. And then the fact that as a result of, after COVID, Zoom and other remote systems have become more in play. And so often there are less conferences and there are more presentations on Zoom.
Yeah.
So convention business has been impacted in a big way. If Mark asks you on a test, what's a Smurf? Smurf is a term of art in the hotel business. It stands for social, military, education, religious, fraternal. Those are types of conventions or associations that tend to want to have conventions. You've got corporate and trade shows. They have conventions. You've got corporate meetings that might be having a sales meeting, a management meeting, a planning meeting, or incentive for corporate might be the top salesman for a particular company are all going to get to go to some location where they get to hang out on the beach, play golf, and they meet for a little bit of the time training. You guys get that. Those are group meetings. Contract. What does that mean? Contract is typically airline. So if you're somewhat close to an airport, let's say, an airline might contract for 100 nights a month, and they prepay at a very low rate, 100 room nights a month. And then they put their airline staff in that hotel at that very low rate.
Or even passengers whose flights perhaps have been canceled
Absolutely.
or delayed. Yeah.
And then Government, government contracts are the same kind of thing. It's a per diem. The government's only allowed to pay a certain amount per night. That's called a per diem rate. And the government and the hotel either accepts or doesn't accept this discounted rate for government employees.
Right.
So now let's step back and look at these things. What pays the most? And what pays the most is typically business transient. Somebody's traveling on business, they need a room night overnight, and their business is paying, they'll pay the most. Leisure transient would also pay a lot. And leisure and business generally pay the most. Who pays the least? Contract business. If the airline's going to agree to pre-buy 100 nights a month, they're going to pay a very low rate. If you accept government contracts, that's a low rate you're agreeing to accept. And conventions, if a convention is going to come into your hotel, whoever's running that convention is going to say, I'm going to take your banquet space, your convention space, and I want a certain number of convention rooms, but all that I can pay, or I will only pay, or I need a discount to pay. And so you're giving those up cheaper.
Got
So
it.
if you're in the sales department of a hotel, and you're trying to decide that the airline comes in and says, I want to buy 100 nights a month from you. Do you make that sale or not? Do you agree to pre-sell rooms at a discount as opposed to trying to wait and book leisure or business travelers who might not book until a week in advance? Do you book a convention a year or two in advance and agree to sell your rooms at a discounted rate to that convention,
Right.
rather than waiting until a week before to sell your leisure or business traveler overnight rooms?
Right. Steve, a quick question while you're on this particular topic. Of these drivers of demand, what would you estimate are probably the area or areas that were most impacted because of COVID and pandemic? Where was it? Where was the hit taken, and what hasn't recovered quite yet,
Okay.
if anything?
So clearly group convention and group corporate took a big hit. Apple, for example, for 2.5, 3 years said no more meetings, and they also said no travel because nobody wanted to be face to face.
Right.
Leisure took a hit, but clearly convention and corporate took the biggest hit. I think and contract business took probably the least amount, and roadside transient probably took the least amount.
Mm-hmm.
Group convention has been very slow to pick up because there are still kind of a slower pickup of convention business where you get 10,000 people in one big room. Going to a convention, people are still a little bit nervous to do that, but that's picked back up.
Right. And there doesn't seem, unless you really do need to be face to face, with the advent of Zoom and WebEx and all of these video and online platforms, it's not really necessary.
Not
For folks.
necessary, but it is necessary because people have relearned the fact that really to be at a convention, to bump into people you didn't expect to bump into, when you're on Zoom, you can see the presentation. But the benefit of going to a convention or a corporate meeting is the one-on-one
Yeah.
people you bump into that you typically won't see and the deals that get done there.
Yeah. Which
People,
we simply can't do with online.
that's right. And so things have begun to pick back up. By
Got
the way, as we look at the different things here, this is the major strategy of a hotel. So yes, it's important how the housekeeping's run and the restaurants run, but the failure or success of a hotel and the general manager of hotel and the sales director sit down and figure out how to allocate their business between these sectors and how they sell. And for a large commercial hotel, this is a really big deal. On a hotel that doesn't have group business, like a roadside hotel, a select service hotel, it's less important, even though the amount of contract business, the amount of discounted business you do is a huge thing that goes all the way up to the top of who owns a hotel and what they
Yeah.
decide to do here.
Yeah. Good,
So
good stuff, Steve. Thank you.
let's move on a bit to topics we've got because the time runs. So let's talk briefly about how you develop a new successful hotel. We're just going to run through this quickly. And the development of a successful hotel, you start with doing a market report study to go over all the things we talked about up here, the demand and supply and the competition. I spent years doing market reports for hotels, and we could have 3 or 4 classes about the details of those, but it's really understanding in great detail the demand and supply of the hotels. And by the way, let's talk about when you're looking at the demand and supply for hotels, let's talk about a term that applies to the hotel business, and it's called a STAR report. STAR, STAR report. What does STAR report stand for? No way for you to know. It stands for Smith Travel Research, STR. Smith Travel Research is a research company called Smith Travel. And many, many years ago, they decided that they were going to collect confidentially the statistics from hotels. The statistics mean the demand, meaning the ADR and the occupancy of hotels. And then they were going to share that information on a confidential basis with other hotels. So if I'm in that small town that had 4 hotels, Smith Travel Research Star would go to them and say, let's make a deal, guys. You give me your ADR and your occupancy for every night for the last year. And I'm going to share that with the other hotels in this market, but I'm not going to tell them which hotel does what.
Right.
I'm going to say, Star says, I'm going to share with everybody the average occupancy and ADR of these 4 hotels, and no one's going to know which hotel does what. You're just going to know the average of those 4 hotels. So hotel number 1 and hotel number 2, 3, and 4 all agree to join this STAR group. And now they get a report that says the average of the 4 hotels they've picked, which are the 4 hotels in their marketplace, had an average ADR and occupancy for, say, the last year of whatever, X, Y, Z. And so you can then, as the owner of one of those hotels, gauge what the competition is doing to help you understand what you should do. They never tell what any individual hotel does.
It's kind of like a blind report, yeah?
That's right, exactly. And you can run those reports. So now we go wide on that report. You can run those reports for the last day, for the last week, for the last month, the last year. You can run it for, let's say you're doing now an area where there might be 100 hotels within the 50 miles around this particular site. You can say, I want a report for all the hotels that have over 100 rooms. I want the hotels for all the luxury hotels, all the select service hotels, all the hotels with restaurants, all the hotels with convention space, all the new hotels, all the old hotels. So you can run it for any criteria you specify. And then they will tell you that here are 10 hotels that meet those tests. And then you might say, I want to pick these 4 hotels and I want the average statistics for these 4 hotels, or for all the hotels that meet these criteria within 50 miles of me. So you can run all kinds of things. And as you can guess, it's a very valuable tool when you're trying to do a market report here.
Because you essentially have an entire competitive set.
Right.
You don't know specific properties, but you have an idea of the overall trade area.
And by the way, when you appraise or do a market report, you also try to knock on the door of the hotel and see how much info you can get from them. But often they won't talk. So
Right.
if you're putting a hotel together, I'm just going to my next point here. You select a project team for entitlements design. Project team might be architects, designers, consultants, contractors, etc. You also work with the management companies and the flag, which, as Mark said, might be Hilton or Hyatt or whoever the company might be, Sheraton, develop a program for the hotel. A program is, what kind of hotel do you have? Do you have a luxury hotel? Do you have a convention hotel? Do you have a select service hotel, which means select service is a hotel that just has rooms and really no convention space, no public space, maybe no pool. That would be a select service hotel. So you obviously have to decide what kind of hotel you're going to build. Amenities, what kind of amenities, and then you look at the projections to determine if you're going to make a profit based on the cost to build it, the kind of rents you think you can get. When I say rents, I mean average daily rate, and what kind of demand or occupancy you'll think you'll have.
Mm-hmm.
Questions there, Mark?
No, I'm okay with it, Steve. You basically kind of gone through exactly what I wanted you to do, kind of identify the drivers of demand. And what Brett talks about in the textbook is essentially what you were kind of slicing and dicing the product groups up. Is this corporate travel? Is this leisure, et cetera? That's discussed in the textbook. And then, of course, kind of walking through the steps to prepare a market study. So you've done a fantastic job as usual.
Good, good. We talked about here penetration. So in my notes, this talks about penetration. See, hotels with competitive advantages to the competition have a penetration over 100%. Those with a competitive weakness have less than a 100%
Right.
penetration. These are things you look at. These are things you look at when you're trying to decide if the hotel makes sense. I'm just going to let you look on the screen here.
Yeah, access, visibility, very, very key. Can we turn into the parking lot from this side of the street? Is there a median? Do we have to go down to the intersection and then turn? How do we access the site? And visibility is something that Brett talks about in each chapter. That's called the window. The window. Can we see the property from the highway or the freeway or the street?
Yeah. And that might mean that you can spend less money on advertising if that's the case.
If you have higher visibility, yeah.
If you're a roadside accessible property, if you're a destination, then the visibility makes no difference at all, of course. And then the rest of the stuff is, are you able to even get the thing built? Zoning, entitlement, utilization, topography, soil quality, environmental. Can you actually build the hotel you'd like to build? And you might say, oh, that sounds like a bunch of words. Well, I've worked on hotels. I worked on a hotel in Napa. They'd been working on it for 15 years and they still weren't able to build it because of all the issues right here.
Yeah. Now, in addition to this, Steve, in terms of like a new market study or a market study for a proposal for a new product, a new hotel, can you kind of riff just a little bit on, for example, what's happening in San Francisco, where major hotel properties, ownerships entities are handing the keys over to the lender and saying, we're out. We're just not going to play ball anymore in terms of demand and what's happening specifically in the San Francisco market.
Mm-hmm. So one quick second. Disaster there because the ambience is not so good now. People don't want to come up there. And not getting into what's happening in downtown San Francisco with the issues they're having to deal with. But what happens when either the rates go down? Well, the rates go down because demand goes down. So it all starts with demand for the hotel. So there are hotels there. We worked on a hotel that was not doing well, and they asked us to come and see if we thought we could help them finance out because their loan was due. And it starts off with, they were running 75% occupancy. They've got a large convention space, and now their occupancy was down to 25% because people did not want to stay there for all the reasons that downtown San Francisco has, and conventions weren't coming there. So then as a result of that, they reduced the rate to try to get the few people that are coming to downtown San Francisco to come stay with them. Death spiral.
That's the
Occupancy goes
doom
down.
loop, right?
The doom loop. The rates go down, the occupancy goes down. Now everybody has to lower their rate to try to get people to stay there. The much of a hotel has very high fixed costs. No matter what your occupancy, you need housekeeping, you need front desk staff, you need guards, you need security. You've got to keep the air conditioning on in the big space. So you've got a lot of fixed expenses, and in this case, interest rates went up too if you float. So the demand went down, and just like I said in the hotel, the good news is you can increase the rates because you only book you book one night out. Again, the weakness is that if the demand goes down, you've got no income or reduced income.
Right.
And then once your NOI, your net operating income, is reduced because of these operating weaknesses due to the location, then we talk about what happens on the financing side when your NOI, your net operating income, goes down and you've got to pay your debt service and your other expenses. And I don't think we want to get into that right now because we're strictly thinking about hotel operations and demand supply here.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. San Francisco is, has some drastic problems. I'm not going to get into the social aspect of it, but as Steve was mentioning in his handout there, one of the things that travelers look at is this concept called ambiance. Do I feel safe? Is it a property that I can identify with? Does it offer the amenities? Do I have to walk over homeless people to enter into the front door? So that's part of what's going on in San Francisco.
When I was visiting this hotel there was a woman out front looking like she was trying to help. And when I walked in and spoke to the general manager of the hotel, I said, I didn't think you had valet parking, but there's a woman in the driveway who's kind of talking to everybody. And his answer was, yes, she's homeless. We can't get her out of here. And she talks to everybody and she's a little mental. It doesn't help with the guests there.
Yeah, for sure.
Why don't we talk briefly about this? Maybe it's the last thing we talk about. And this is parties to a hotel operations. And we talked about what a hotel is, but let's kind of talk about how you develop, design, who's involved in a hotel, and what are they called. The owner of a hotel is the guy that actually owns the dirt and owns the hotel, and you typically never see their name. You don't know who they are. They provide the equity, they assemble the team, they're the final decision maker at the end of the day. When I say they provide the equity, they might also be, as I'm sure you guys know, a developer or a sponsor, and they raise the equity from an outside equity investor, but they're in charge in partnership with their limited partner investor, who might be, for a large hotel, an institutional investor in that deal. Lender, obviously there is a lender on the deal. They provide the debt. They want to protect their position by having a secured first mortgage. They require reporting every month, every quarter, every year, so that they can make sure the hotel's doing okay. And guess what? If the NOI of the hotel goes down, they might want to put an asset manager or a receiver in to watch the asset, because if an asset's going downhill, it might be that management has screwed up and they want to fix it before it gets too bad.
Right.
Remember, we said that the problem with a hotel is that if a customer is unhappy, he just doesn't come back. So the lender of a hotel, if it seems like the hotel's starting to go badly, they want to actively get involved. So they want to monitor the operations, the debt equity ratios, the debt coverage ratios, all those financial ratios, to make sure the hotel's doing okay.
Right.
A lender or a owner, or an institutional owner or an institutional investor might want there to be an asset manager. Asset manager is a skilled person that oversees the asset, keeps an eye on all the tests that we talked about, and have expertise to really monitor the hotel on a more regular basis and report to the owner, the lender, the investor, and tell them how things are going. Obviously, they're skilled in the hotel business. A franchisor is involved in the hotel. A franchisor could also be known as the flag, the operator or the flag, but a hotel is typically a franchise operation. A franchise means that you rent the brand name. If you've got a Holiday Inn hotel, Holiday Inn typically doesn't own the hotel. Holiday Inn rents you the brand through a franchise, and Holiday Inn protects the reputation of the brand in that rental agreement by having different requirements to the franchisee who rents the brand from the franchisor. And that means that, yes, the franchisor, Holiday Inn, inspects the property every month, make sure you're doing things, tell you that your beds must be a certain way, your colors must be a certain way, your service must be a certain way, because they don't want to ruin the reputation of the brand.
Right.
Franchisee means that if you go to a Holiday Inn anywhere in the country, you can be assured it's going to meet a certain standard. And those brand standards are maintained very carefully by the franchisor, Holiday Inn, and you pay fees to them. They also, because if you want to stay in a Holiday Inn and get a certain Holiday Inn standard, they offer a reservation system to fill the rooms. They provide quality assurance reviews, that's maintaining the standards. They provide training to the employees at that hotel. And guess what? The employees at the hotel typically work for Holiday Inn's management company, or they work for whoever the management company is at that hotel. They might also provide purchasing contracts. Interestingly, I worked at a Hyatt hotel, and it was a large Hyatt hotel with 300 rooms and very, very large conference space. And I was the purchasing director for about 3 months at that hotel. So I was buying truckloads of supplies, forklift fulls of meat and fruit and dairy. And
Right.
I would often buy that through purchasing arrangements that Hyatt hotels had, where all the Hyatt hotels agreed to buy their milk from a certain company, and we got a great price. So
Right.
I was buying cases, to say the least, of milk every day at a set price from a set purchasing contract.
Right.
Management companies, so a certain Holiday Inn might be owned by XYZ company, might be branded a Holiday Inn, but might be run by a certain management company whose name you won't see. And they have a contract with the owner of the hotel to operate this Holiday Inn with the Holiday Inn brand, but they're the ones that run it. And there are numerous hotel management companies out there that manage hotels, and often they might have expertise with a certain brand. So you might find a certain management company that if you look and ask them, they have, 25 Holiday Inns and nothing else, because they have expertise with that brand.
Right.
But also some management companies do all brands. And see the things that the management company does. They hire and supervise staff, they establish budgets, they establish pricing. So they work closely with the owner of the hotel to determine how the hotel is being run. And then let's go down and look here at ownership structure. Well, we talked about these different things just now. The ownership companies own the hotel, the franchisor brands it, managed either corporate by the brand, or it's managed by a management company, REITs, or a form of a company that owns a lot of hotels. Franchise fees are what you're paying to rent the brand. Management fees are what you're paying the management company to operate the business at the hotel. The owner pays for the capital improvements. He pays the management company their fees. So that gives you just an idea of how these things are structured. I don't think we're going to get into financial statements for hotels, right? We don't need to get
No,
into
we're not
that.
going to go over spreadsheets or anything like that.
Okay, so
I think one of the key takeaways, just kind of sum up, is Steve really wants to present this product type as a business, like not looking at it as necessarily primarily real estate, but hotels and motels are businesses. They have to be run that way.
that's right. That's right. And I'm giving you kind of behind the scenes. You check into a hotel and you just know that you're staying at at a holiday, and you don't think about the fact that XYZ management company operates it for Mr. Developer, who's getting money from the teachers pension fund of Texas that actually have most of the cash in it. And
Right.
these are all the different parts of putting the pie to together. Shall we talk about this for a second? So there are different structures of hotels if you want to kind of go wide. There are condo hotels. A condo hotel means that somebody builds a 100-room luxury hotel. Trump had done a bunch of those before he became active in politics. There are Trump hotels, there are Four Seasons hotels. There are certain very luxury type hotels that are sold as condos. That means that 100 rich guys actually buy a condo in the hotel. So your hotel room or hotel suite is actually owned by Mr. Investor who owns one hotel room. And he could actually live in that hotel room all the time if he wanted to. But what he does is he says, okay, I'm going to stay in that hotel room for free as much as I want, but I'm really going to put that hotel room into the rental pool. And the rental company and the flag or the franchise that's operating that hotel is actually going to rent my hotel room from me. And I'm the owner of that one hotel room. I'm going to get 50% of the room rent that they charge. And I'm going to, and the management company is going to keep 50% to pay for the management, the advertising, the cleaning, all that stuff. That's a condo hotel. Timeshares are a form of a hotel. Not really, but they are. Marriott is the biggest timeshare company. Marriott builds a all-suite hotel, and then they have this pool where people maybe buy 1 week use of that hotel suite, and they can also then put it into the pool and exchange it for renting or getting use of a 1 week at a different hotel timeshare, or they can sell their timeshare nights. They can also buy more timeshare nights, but it looks like a suite hotel on the outside, but somebody has bought shares in that timeshare, and that's called timeshare. Fractionals is another form of a shared use of a hotel or a deluxe hotel where you actually buy maybe 1 month of the 12 months of this luxury hotel. Ritz-Carlton Club is that. And in that case, you actually get a deed for maybe 1 month or 1/12 use of this hotel. And Ritz-Carlton may decide to do this condo hotel concept where they rent half of it, or you just use it yourself. And then there are clubs like exclusive resorts or destinations where they just you buy a certain number of nights in the club, and the club, like exclusive resorts, either rents or owns a very exclusive house or condo somewhere, and you buy 20 nights a year, and you book through their reservation system nights at that uh, nice house that you've pre-bought every year.
Right.
Um, so let me just run through the rest of these notes here. I think I'm done on this. Mark, are there any things you'd like us to go back to, or you think we're good?
I think based on what we had chatted about, kind of the material in the textbook, and you've given us kind of a bird's eye view of delineating a trade area, doing competitive analyses with both, demand and existing supply. You've mentioned the STAR report. There, we've talked about drivers of demand, and then Smurf and the STAR report itself. So I think you basically kind of hit on exactly what I wanted you to do. You want to kind of wrap it up for us and give us like a little bit of a summary, what to look for, kind of what's happening in the hotel segment?
Sure. Let me just trying to get rid of what's on the screen. Let me undo my share. I can't seem to find how to undo it. Are you able to undo the share from
Yeah,
your?
I did it.
Oh, you did. Oh, that's why I can't, because you did it already. Okay, I've been
Do you
looking.
want to share something again?
No,
Hold on
no,
a second.
no, we're done. We're done. I wanted to, I was trying to find the undo and I couldn't because you had done it. Great, thank you. So hotel business is a business. You get that? It's a very tough, very tough business to be in. You know, people say, I want to have my own bed and breakfast. That's my dream. Kind of like I want to get into the restaurant business. That's my dream, to serve people. That's wonderful. It's a very tough business. 9 out of 10 restaurants that open up fail. Probably the numbers are very large for the number of B&Bs that fail. And certainly you don't go into the hotel business unless you've got experience in running a hotel, the business of it.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's a very tough business to be in. People are doing well now. The business is strong. Again, interest rates have a big impact on that. Let me digress and just tell you what we do. So we arrange loans. And I always remind people that if there's something we can do, if you know somebody that might need a loan, a real estate loan, give us a call. We pay fees, referral fees. If you want to understand the business a bit more, feel free to give me a call. I'm happy to talk to you. Anybody who's in any of Mark's classes, I'm always happy to talk to. And Mark, I have to say that I bump into people in the lending business, lenders, developers, very often, once a month, that say, oh, I met you in Mark's class and you taught us about X or Y hotels or financing or this or that. And we really appreciated the class, and look at what I do now. So
Wonderful.
you've got a huge reach
I
after class.
I had no idea that my reach was that deep and broad, Steve, but thank you very much. I'm grateful for that. Thanks for the head.
You know, I as well, I'll just say that very often, Mark, newbies in the business come to me and say, I want to get in the business. My background is whatever it is. And I say, your background is not good enough to even try to get into the business, because you don't know all the things that you need to know.
Yeah.
And I say, sign up for Mark's class. I say, take his class, take a class in law, appraisal, and Mark's class, and maybe one or two more, and then come back and talk to me, I say, if
Yeah.
you want to get into the business. But I say, you've got to learn the nuts and bolts, and Mark's class is one of the first classes to take to do that.
Thank you very much, Steve. Even now, I think I have two or three students I'm teaching two classes this quarter, two or three of whom were recommended by previous students to kind of come in and take
Good,
these classes. So
good,
that's
good.
very
Well, you've
helpful.
got the expertise, Mark. You've been in the business long enough that you can share and give them the broad.
I've got the gray hair and the balding head to prove it.
That
Well,
proves it. Nice to meet you, everybody.
yeah, Steve has been always just such a mention. He's such a gem to come into our classes and chat with us. Steve, it's always a pleasure. Hang on one second. We'll kind of sign off here. You and I will chit chat for just a little bit. So
Great.
everybody
Okay.
pay attention to the video, watch and listen to what Steve has been telling you. Steve has basically walked you through the entire hotel motel category in the textbook. So pay attention to his bullet points, drivers of demand, the STAR report, and etc. All right. Steve, hang on. It's always a pleasure. Hang on one second.